She's just probably what?
I mean, so please,
55?
when you want to import, please import with some sense. Don't give us figures that... Don't make comparisons of lemons and apples.
Although they are both fruits. Other than that.
So that one is a rumor, okay. That's calming. Calming. Very calming.
Because
indeed.
we actually spoke with officials of IPMAN, Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, because it was one of their officers that allegedly released the information. And they came out and said, it's not from them.
Okay, but the thing is, they say that we have deregulated. So how come NNPC is still the one that's talking about, or the one being questioned about this rumor?
And I think that's a problem we have to, take responsibility for. And here is what I mean. NNPC is an operator in the petroleum industry
as
itself,
well as a regulator.
As well as everyone. No, it's not a regulator. That's the error. The only thing that makes it look like is that NNPC is the sole the sole importer of petroleum products as of today.
Yeah.
Now, so NNPC naturally sells as a retailer and as a wholesaler, so to speak. So NNPC is the one that distributes to all other marketers and the rest of them. So they have a benchmark of their own prices. Yesterday, which day was it? I bought fuel at an NNPC fuel station for $5.68. That, I think, is a tiny bit of increase.
Yeah.
And a number of other fuel stations are still selling between $5.99 and $6. In fact, I saw $6.30 somewhere on Kudura Tabiola Way in Ikeja. So it is not, we don't have a regulator, but people use the NNPC as a benchmark and, some prices and all those things. So I think that should be. However, there is a reason we have the NMDPRA. And part of their own job is to ensure that people don't overprice petroleum products, for Nigerians. Extortion. Yeah. If we don't have an NMDPRA, for instance, what does it take for all of these independent marketers to come together and say, this is how much we're going to sell, and that is final? Yeah. So just to abolish or rather mitigate any kind of oligarchy.
In the course of the week, we heard that the bill for the establishment of 47 new universities has scaled the second reading. And what immediately crossed my mind was, who's going to teach in all these universities? Followed yesterday by the news that there were at least 100 fake professors in our universities.
Yesterday, over the past 2 days, we talked about, and I'm sure you're aware of that news as well, of fake university certificates, so to speak, being brought into the country. And
Kenya and Uganda are now in that basket of ban,
as a result of a reporter who went undercover to do it. By the way, I think that is something, perhaps the one lesson for us there is one individual can do something, so you can make impact. No matter what it is you can do in your space. What that young man did, for instance, everyone is talking about it because it is making an impact. It is causing us to review our processes, review our books about the NYSC, the kinds of certificates we bring into Nigeria and all of that one. Having said that, the issue that you're talking to, in 2016, NUC released a list of universities that are no longer viable in the country. By 2023, they reviewed that same list. I think some, about 4 taken out, another 4 replaced, and all those things. So are those 50-something the ones that are now asking for university degrees and stuff? That's one question that I would want to find out and ascertain whether or not that is, because it is very, very concerning. The number of graduates that we push out in Nigeria alone, how many of them are able to get a job after their degrees and the NYSC?
We keep talking about university degrees, and we keep talking on this program that university degrees are not what we need. Did, what's his name, go to the Microsoft guy? Did he go to university? He's a university, he was. He's late now. He was a university dropout. I mean, those who are making waves in the tech space, which is the in thing, they are not university graduates.
Okay, you're talking about Steve Jobs.
Yes, Steve Jobs, that's right. I mean, we need to use our hands. We need to produce things and not, as they say in Pidgin, read book. Not be read book with a talk now. We're talking do things with your hands.
I hope we learn from China, because we've been talking about technical education for eons. And we're hearing that some people are pushing for, how far that has gone, I don't even know, polytechnic certificates to be upgraded to degree level for only one reason: earning salaries. But they're supposed to have different functions. I think we need to have our heads screwed right as a nation as to exactly what we want to do about these things.
We need to get to a point where a plumber will come to your house and tell you that he's charging you per hour. And what he's charging is not chicken feed.
Until then,
because he's a professional. Absolutely. And you pay for his know-how, his professional know-how. But who wants to be a plumber? I want to put a tie on and go to an office.
Well, yeah, I mean, a plumber can still do just that.
Put a tie on and go to the office?
Oh, yeah.
Who's going to hold the spanner and undo the pipes and things?
Just wear your coverall. What does it take?
We're going to start Sunrise this morning by looking at the Nigeria that works for all.
And the next one will be something in the region of agriculture. And it's not just about, it's about food prices, how we ensure that is something that works for all of us. Food prices is one, but the challenge here is that of harmful pesticides in the food chain. You remember that, anyway, we'll get into that conversation later on.
Okay. And then we'll look at Future Africa Leaders Foundation.
What that is about, you want to find out. Lifestyle today, it's a new year. Promoting mental well-being. You know the popular thing now? No grief for anybody.
No grief.
So how does that promote mental well-being? We'll find out in the course of time.
And then we shall close, as usual, with the artist of the week. And I'm going to tell you that she is a she, and that's all I'm disclosing.
Hey, it's a new year. Can you be more generous? You can't.
She was in Battleground.
How in the universe does that say anything? You know, please grab a cup of cocoa.
Or cocoa.
And we'll be right back. Thank you for staying with us. Let's begin with some energizing ourselves towards a Nigeria that works for all. Many people believe that Nigeria is in a very difficult, an extremely difficult place at that in recent time, given grave insecurity, macroeconomic instability, stagflation, check your dictionary, an alarming education deficit, poverty, unemployment, hunger, religious and ethnic intolerance, monetary and fiscal misalignment, lack of infrastructure, oil theft, the highest debt burden in the country's history, and pathologically dysfunctional institutions. Please.
Long list, huh?
Quite a list, and certainly inexhaustive. Don't get me wrong. Other parts of the world are having their own challenges as well, but we're not in other parts of the world. We are in Nigeria. So how do we make our own situation different? That's what our conversation will center around today. How we can get the quality and capacity of leadership that will enable transformational development in Nigeria. A leadership that ensures that every Nigerian can eat at least 3 meals a day, a roof over their heads, clothes on their back, sleep with 2 eyes closed, and an inexhaustive list of desires. Let's bring on two people this morning to have this conversation with us. Charles Iyore is principal partner of the UK-based Dion and Associates. He joins us from Kent virtually. Thank you for joining us this morning, Mr. Iyore.
Morning.
And we also have with us Oyebisi Oluseyi, Executive Director, Nigerian Network of NGOs. He, is joining us from Ibadan. Thank you for joining us this morning, Mr. Oluseyi.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
All right. Let's begin with you, Mr. Oluseyi. For you, where you sit and from the issues that we have been discussing for many years, how far away are we from Uhuru?
I think it's still a long walk to freedom, and there's so much that needs to be done. When you again look at the statistics we've been quoting since 2022 of about 133 million Nigerians living in multidimensional poverty. And as at 2023, the World Bank estimates that we have about 84 million Nigerians that are living below the poverty line, which is $2.15 and equivalent of 1,966 naira if you're using the CBN rate. So that shows you that we still have a long way to go in addressing many of the dynamics or elements that you've mentioned today. People being able to have housing, good education, access to good roads, infrastructure, water, again, being able to sleep and sleep in ways that you're not bothered about your security. We still have those challenges with us. And that's why I said that it's still a long way to freedom.
Mr. Iyore, are we on the way?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. What I will say is that I agree with Oluseyi, we're still a long way off. But what you're asking basically is what we describe in financial services as expectation. So what are the expectations of the common man in Nigeria? The expectations have not been met since 1960. Now, expectation basically is that if you fry a dumpling, whether it's akara or of local colors, they look alike, but they don't taste the same. So the expectation is different. Now, the only way you can deliver that expectation is to work through what is called an institution, about the institutional framework. That might sound very big English, institutional framework, but the institutions we all know about are schools, secondary schools, primary schools, universities. These are institutions. And what marks them out? What marks them out is that when you go into a school, you can tell a teacher apart from students. The headmaster is not likely to bring a professor of mathematics from one student or primary one student. Neither will he promote a primary one student into from 5 because he knows clearly he's setting him up for failure. Now, if also does that, it means that he wants to do all the work in the school. Governments, in effect, are a bundle of many institutions, just like the schools. And if those schools are not good, you're not likely to send your children there. Those sending children there is like investors from abroad or from Nigeria. If all of those things have failed, because the power vacuum since 1960 has not been properly filled, and the elite fidelis lost, it means that when you put people in the wrong places, you encourage a culture of impunity. That culture of impunity means that 1 + 1 will never be. I hope I've answered your question. Thank you.
Well, I'm not sure you did answer the question because you only raised more questions if you ask me, Mr. Iyore. So let me stick with you for a minute. You took us back to independence.
Yeah.
Perhaps what you're trying to point us to is that there are structural, infrastructural, soft infrastructure or hard infrastructure, whichever one, that are bedeviling our development. If that is what you're saying, could you point us in the direction so that the viewer can understand what you mean with the issues that you have raised? Have we been focusing on the wrong things? If we need to realign, what do we need to realign? Because people feel the impact of these things. We don't even know the things that are bringing on these impacts.
Yes. I don't want to carry on an elite conversation. What I told you basically Whether it's the local government, the state government, or the federal government, it's basically a bundle of institutions. And that word institution can be confusing, which is why I said use a school as an example. Use a school, that's an institution. How does it work? And I've told you, so that becomes a basis for you to do a comparison. I said the head teacher of a school will set out the parameters of who can be a teacher or who can be a. All right? All right. The next stage is that he will also be setting who employs to teach is fit for purpose. They won't bring a professor of mathematics to come and teach quantum economics to quantum physics to primary one people. You get what I'm saying? And then he will also not ensure that from primary one people is not in Form 5. He will fail the school site from the very beginning. And I'm saying that all of these things, which is like laying out the stalls, which is filling up the power vacuum that came in 1960, have been done with the highest level of dishonesty. So if you say the military took us a wide drift apart, now that we have civilian rule, what are we doing to ensure that these institutions are fit for purpose? That's what I've said. And I don't know how better to, because it's not going to details of power supply and financial services and currency. You confuse the man on the street. He knows what the school is. He knows the kind of school he wants to send his child to. He knows why he sends his child to that school. This is why your investment is not working.
Mr. ABC, for the ordinary Nigerian out there, a Nigeria that works would be one where he can send his child to a good school, he can feed his children, he has got an education and he will get a job that will pay him based on his qualification. If he's a farmer, he's free to go to his farm and he's sure that he can farm in peace. All these go into this thing about making, and more go into this making Nigeria work for all of us. What things do you think are crucial when we're talking about making Nigeria work?
There are a lot of elements that we need to think through. Of course, the historical perspective provided by Mr. Iyore should also be in context. But to now look at the way forward and looking forward to, if we say we want Nigerians to earn decent living, what does that mean? It means that there has to be jobs, there has to be businesses, small businesses, macro, and the MSME sector has to be properly situated in ways that ensures that people can get some level of jobs there and decent living can be earned. And you also want to look at policies of government, those around social protection, those around job creation, those around ensuring that security is guaranteed. Then you now look at the people that would implement those policies. And I think that's where the institutional conversation comes in. If I say I want to go to Lagos, there are a lot of things that are involved in me getting to Lagos, from the car that will take me, the driver that will take me, and also the fuel and all of those bits. So how do we look at when government says we want to do this, the aspirations or the policies that has been couched or the implementation of the budget, as it were? The infrastructure, which is the people that would implement that, the civil service that would implement that, is very, very important. For example, the president decided to say we would give 50% slash to the cost of transportation. The train facility would have to be used. Look at the infrastructure that would deliver that. Look at the racketeering that we saw in the delivery of that. So sometimes when government itself is on that path, they say, okay, this would be our policy direction. Let's focus also on those that will implement that. The systems that we have to implement that are also very much important. I think we need to pay critical attention to those as well.
Mr. Iyore, this Nigeria that we're all aspiring to have, this Nigeria that will work for all of us, that's a big ask to start with. Do we have the kind of leadership that will give us this Nigeria that we all yearn for?
But what I always say basically is that for anyone to become a president or wherever, leader of some thought, he already has courage. That's what you require as a leader. But who is in your court? Who are your senators? Whether at the local government level or state level or federal level. Senators, not in the sense that you say it, advisory that it takes. What is the quality of this advisory? The best any university or institution can give you what they call tools of analysis. When you get there on the field, you must be able to determine and conceptually say what the challenge is. Then you know the kind of tool to apply. It's maybe like in golf. You can't use a big thing to hit the small one. Now, what I'm telling you basically is that every time you appoint the wrong person, every time you make the wrong decision, anywhere, in any institution, what you're encouraging is a culture of impunity. And what we've done basically is even the monsters created, the colonial master, the military rule, fell into a significance to the monsters we're now seeing under civil rule. That is a challenge. There needs to be an elite consensus to say, we want to go ahead this way. Resources are there, without a doubt. Without a doubt, the resources are there. If you don't understand first the concept of money, you understand how utilities and markets are developed, you're just going to be running around in circles. You work it till the night hours, you work forever, nothing is going to be achieved. If we change our mindset, say, look, what we want to do is that ensure to work well. You can change the tone of the country in 90 days. 90 days. That's what I said. 90 days. I know it's been taking 40 years to get to this stage. 90 days. You can change the tone of government. You really know what you want to do. That, in my view, is what has to happen first. We start asking what to expect. Thank you.
So you say with elite consensus, we can change the tone in 90 days.
90 days. I want to say the third and 90 days.
So
because basically, let me assume you are the head of you're the teacher at the primary school. You have to create discipline in that school. Kid is rude to you, talks to you the way he likes, and you say, oh, kid is disruptive. You send the kid out. The master comes and says, Shay, you have to go off the best days. You get what I'm saying? What I'm saying is physical, but if you take it to the realm of decision making, you can understand the implication of raising a culture of impunity.
So
that's where we are.
Now, essentially what you're saying is we don't have that elite consensus yet.
No, we don't. We're fragmented into all kinds of divisions. There's all the tribe, tongue, tribe, and creed, nepotism. Strangely, also keep those things going on by strange rituals of loyalty. And that's pathetic. Unfortunately, all of Africa copies us.
Now,
they were really on the hide into nothing.
Okay. Now, I want to believe that these elites that you're talking about are spread across all sectors, not just political.
Oh, from the home. That's why I told you all levels of government.
All levels of leadership.
All levels of government, even the house.
Okay. So, what do we need, if you can hazard a guess, to jumpstart the need, that desperate need for the elite consensus? What needs to happen?
There's something called a case study. Let's go to what Mr. Oluseyi said. You want to do cash transfer payment, you want to allow people to travel, but so and so. Those don't have to be done by cash. They can be done by vouchers. They can be done by food stamps. They can be targeted. The basis of all this kind of graft would no longer exist. But if you do them knowing fully well that they are inappropriate, it means you already know where the end is going to be. Must be dishonest.
Mr. Oluseyi, now that you have been cited as a reference case in this matter, I see perhaps the challenge that Mr. Ayora is talking about here is that of communication. To have consensus, there needs to be communication. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, I totally agree with you on that. And I'm not sure whether in a democracy you can get consensus of all, because, there's the diversity of opinion, of thoughts, all right? And we're all allowed to have that expression of how we think and how we want to behave, but in ways that ensure that we're not harming each other. What I do think is we now need a policy direction that can get us to where we are. And without, I like that 90 days ambition, all right. And I do also want to be an incurable optimist. When you look at some of the policies that we do have coming from the federal government at this time, they may help us, all right, if they are properly implemented to jumpstart that way forward. Look at the 3 million technical training or technology training that is being planned by the Ministry of the Communications. And when you look at also, though, we do have some social protection element, all right, the school feeding program. While those may not necessarily grow to scale, when we jumpstart that and we implement those properly, I think it's a proper implementation, ensuring that we can block leakages. All of this can be, implemented using technology, like Mr. Yoris is trying to tell us to say. Some of these things you can put systems around them in ways that reduce human interference. Then we can now begin to track progress, look at where we may have failed, quickly learn lessons and retool. Then also expand, look at, the planting program that the government also elected for 2024, looking at planting wheat, rice, supported by AFDB. We need to see those being properly implemented. It is about implementation. And that's why I go back to that structure. I would implement it. All right. Look at the business. All right. I've started my business.
If
I'm able to get the right
answer. Butting in, Mr. Lucia, the former president, Professor Osinbajo, at a public event, beg your pardon, former vice president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, said at a public event that, look, some people are exploiting the
system,
our fault lines. And these fault lines are made up of culture, tradition, religion, and in fact, another, leadership consultant dared say one of our fault lines is our leadership system. We are trying to superimpose democracy on a monarchical culture. Now, if you see these things as a challenge themselves, and you're talking about the infrastructure that are supposed to execute some of these wonderful, laudable policies that you talk about, how do we go about it? How can the cultures, what would be the selling point for us to tell anyone, lay aside your primordial sentiments, let us build Nigeria first, and then we can make the second, our cultures, our traditions, our allegiances and our alliances to these other sentiments, second place. How do you think that can happen? Bearing in mind that the first thing anyone wants is their own personal interests.
So we can't take away that personal interest, and in doing that, there's a need for a rebirth. What is my role? What is your role? And how do we see this for the collective? We do not want a system where we're all selfish, right? And we're expecting the other person to come beg us before they can hear. If we have a consensus that we need a country where all of us can afford decent living, that my role, your role, helps us to get there, whether I am X or Y or B or Z, our diversity, how do we manage it for the collective good? And this is where we have a role for civil society, especially faith-based organizations, and also the media, in helping to create that awareness that is needed, but also at the individual level, at the family unit level. We all must change, that rebirth must happen, such that if I have a role in government, whether I'm a police officer, whether I'm a nurse, whether I'm a doctor, I do my work the way I should do it, not coming back to give an excuse and say, I'm not being paid very well, not have X, Y, Z, A, B, C. And that, if I also have been employed to do X, Y, Z, I'm also given the tools to be able to do that effectively, such that my performance, when it is being measured, I'm measured on, I have access to the tools, I have access to enabling environment for me to be able to do it effectively. Then we then ask the question, why haven't I been able to do it effectively? So those fault lines, they would always be there. How do we conscientiously make use of those fault lines in the ways we implement our policies? Understanding poverty doesn't care whether you are a Christian or a Muslim or whether you're a male or female. Understanding that insecurity also doesn't care where you are. And it happens, it happens. So we need that rebirth. And how to now get to that position of rebirth depends on individuals. Our selfishness will always play out as humans. Our ethnicity will always play out. But we now need that, being conscientious about how do we move people, especially when you have authority.
Well, Mr. Yore, if you agree with Mr. Oyebisi in any way, again, I come back to the issue of communication. Not just informing people, not just pushing narratives, not just pouring out public relations at people, but how do we communicate some of these ideals? Because before Nigeria can work for all have to be involved one way or the other, unless I'm getting that wrong. So how do we communicate these ideals? We have them in our national anthem. We have them in the national pledge. We have it in the Constitution. So how do we, market these ideals, communicate these ideals that you're talking about to the point that the elites will buy it and communicate same to the people that are their adherents?
Thank you. I heard what you said about the vice president. I don't know any local government in Nigeria where they don't need houses. But point to me one local government where they build the houses and the walls are not crooked. Or they will all not think Los Beja needs to build a house for them. Those who are old enough, they know what Adino Ogunsoye and Ogunlano Drive were just simple houses. There's absolutely no reason why every house in Nigeria should not be like that. So if you say you want to take care of housing, why is your national vocational qualification system that ensures that the houses should live? We're not talking about high-rise crashing now. Simple houses. 774 local governments. If you complain about people compromising the policy positions, basic things you need to do. If you create houses and you create assets rapidly, you'll be amazed at what will happen to your currency. When England was in crisis, one of the key things Margaret Thatcher did was allow people who own council houses, own them. Because they own them, they took care of them very well. Because they took care of them very well, they became assets that would transfer into the bank books, which is why we only lost Midland Bank that became HSBC. But when people want to bring very high-value concepts to very simple things, that's where it beats me. Tell me one local government where there are no houses needed. Tell me why the house needs to be built by Julius Berger. To answer those questions, then we can go forward.
Staying with you, with Mr. Yore, in all of this,
Yes.
we cannot dwell on the leadership alone. The people have to be part of this Nigeria that we all want to work towards. How would you suggest that this whole thing, taking from what my partner asked earlier, is communicated to the people so that they buy into this vision and not see themselves as above the law, or they know somebody who can always get them out of trouble so they can get away with murder if they so decide?
Thank you, Alero.
And I'm talking about a country where all of us believe that we have a stake and we are all equal in the eyes of the law.
Thank you, Alero. 2015, when Buhari came into office, an article was widely published saying that hope again was alive. And in that article, I said, let everybody become the hope that they wish for. That was not supposed to remove the position of government. The very act that you go out to vote means that you are giving your own authority who essentially holds that authority. It means you are ready to work in the system. But there's an extent, there's a limit to which you can be populist. Because consensus, agreeing, no matter how you got the election, I was reading, I don't really know what that matters, is that authority has been given to certain people. They need to exercise this for the people. Now, he was saying people needed to be ambitious. All right, it's good for you to be ambitious for yourself, go to school, get a degree, your wife, set the family, be ambitious for your family. But somebody needs to be ambitious for the people. People are doing deals with government systems. Who is doing deals on behalf of the country? We haven't had anybody think on behalf of the country a long time. And until you begin to deal with that appropriately, not make decisions in smoke-filled room, it's going to be hiding to nothing. Unfortunately, South Africa copies us. And that's the bad part. Thank you.
And that's a very sad one, that Africa is copying our model.
Yes.
Okay. So, it's very interesting. Excuse me. So I saw something, Mr. Oluseyi, in the budget this year, one of the issues that the president and the federal government were trying to resolve is to make life easy for people in the time being, so to speak. Excuse me. Consequently, hence the introduction of what they call the Consumer Credit Fund to the tune of 100 billion naira, which, according to the federal government, is in response to the growing cost of living and increasing borrowing trends among Nigerians. Taking the example of what we heard recently, that the president gave some grains of rice, bags of rice to Nigerians through members of the National Assembly. How do you see this 100 billion naira Consumer Credit Fund in the 2024 budget working?
So, again, these are some of the issues we're trying to situate. 100 billion in the economy is something, but not a lot. However, if that 100 billion goes to those that truly need it and that can use it to transform their lives, then we would have been on that journey to taking as many people out of poverty as possible. So implementation would be where we need to focus, and the challenge there. If this is a consumer credit, my courteous assumption is that I would have access to it for me to be able to buy some of the things I probably may not be able to afford, and then be paying back. All right. Now, those that would implement it, couldn't they go and bring their relatives, their family members, and disguise them as the beneficiaries of this type of interventions from the federal government? And that's why it's hammering on the fact that if since 1960, we've had policies, all right, and they've been implemented the way they should be implemented, we would have been taking the needed baby step. Okay. So this 100 billion, it sounds like a lot of money, but not the type of money that we need to quickly get the 133 million people that are living in multidimensional poverty out of poverty. However, it could help us jumpstart that process to getting people out of poverty. Implementation. How do we ring fence that money away from corruption, away from leakages, and to ensure that those that would have access to it have access to it in ways that are decent, respectful, and that they are also able to give back, such that that money can then help the system, as it were. This would be my courteous thinking around this, to say, yes, 100 billion is on the table. Implementation. How do we monitor? How do we report back? How do we learn when there are mistakes in the process? But how do we block leakages of that 100 billion? How do we put technology around that? and technologies that won't be failing, such that we still have to have that human interference.
Well, Mr. Yore, I'd like you to superimpose that same issue, but this time on the social investment register issue, which has been on for a while and seems to be gaining some traction a little more now. In the comparing how we implemented the social investment register, the indictments that have come around it, the allegations of the governors that it wasn't working for them, and consequently they believe that it needs reviewing. And now we have 100 billion naira consumer credit fund being worked at. If you were to recommend to the federal government, look, we need to work this well, what would be your recommendation?
Well, I know you have a mandate to get instructions from me, but you're not paying for it. I'll tell you what I need to tell you. You have 100 billion that needs to go out to feed poor and needy. It needs to come in from the local government. Local governments need to have food banks. Local government needs to have soup kitchens. People are going to donate to it. What you find very carefully is that those in government see themselves as mutually exclusive from the private sector. This is why the palliatives they got wanted to use it to run elections. You tell the local government, this is what you need to do. The vouchers is for them to be printed centrally. So how much food is wasted in each of the local governments in Nigeria today? You're amazed when you hear the figures. How much crafts, how much of the children, what the children do at the weekend? They know how to weave baskets, those baskets collected. Those caps, you see them make, northern caps in particular, a very high level of tapestry, properly done and properly colored as a major export item. But I really don't know why you create local governments, 774 of them, you disable them, and you throw the money in all the time regularly, expect it to go anywhere when there's no plumbing. You want to throw water into a system and there are no pipes to take it there. See, I don't want to sound as if I'm precise because what we're talking about now is not just in the recent past. We've been talking about this since 1988.
Wow. You
cannot run an economy that's anchored on the currency that's not produced by you. Anchored our currency, the dollar, since 1988. Published a newsletter. A few people were involved in it who were in government today. They thought we were sub-optimizing at that time. We are still doing that 7 years after. There are 54 currencies in Africa, all of them tanking down, none of them making progress. You don't want to think about that. We really have to decide whether we want to be part. For example, you cannot be part of the World Trade Organization where we have our lady as being in charge, and yet the currency is not convertible. So what are you talking about? Currency is not convertible. What do you need? If you do all the things that you need to do to make the currency convertible, you're amazed that all the ways to be cut off. These people are not ambitious for the country; they're ambitious for themselves, and that has to happen. So until that happens, I mean, we knew what we went through. Ali must go. We joined the Nigerian Forum version of the NEDEC elsewhere. All of a sudden, those who argued for structured arrangements think it's nothing to them. That's pathetic.
Interesting. Alera has another question. Go ahead.
Mr. Oluseyi, what part do you think the family will play in achieving this, seeing as we seem to have lost our family values altogether?
The family sure has a role, and that role starts with how we groom our children. And again, that has to start from the father and the mother. Plus also, how do we see failure? I keep saying it, that, the public schools today are what they are because we all quickly look for alternatives in the private schools. And when you look at the private school system, all right, our children will be able to speak English, but I'm not 110% sure that, some of the values that we need are being given there. Then you have parents that are also interested in their children quickly getting to the university, doing everything quickly, and ensuring that they get results at one sitting and all of those bits. We need to pay attention to God-given roles in the family or whatever we all believe in. to say, as a family, what exactly would be our own family values. Growing up, there were things you can't do. They'll say, I'm not sure you're from that family, because if you're from that family, we know this is how they typically would behave. We need to go back to that. Of course, there are pressures, the economic pressures on families now, whether women-led families or male-led families. There are pressures, economic pressures on all of us. But we need to think through how we are also making money. Okay, what exactly are our needs? How do we meet those needs within our own resources without being corrupt, without getting others, our neighbors, to cry? How do I ensure that the money that I have, I'm spending it on my children? So if my children can go to public school, let them go to public school without pressuring myself that they should go to private school. If I can only, feed one child or two, let me keep within that. Let me not get pressured by a mother-in-law or my own parents telling me to have more than one or more than two. So we need to start thinking that way. And again, families, whether you belong to any faith, what exactly are we being taught? Whether you're a Christian or a Muslim or you are a taught religion, no religion teaches you to steal. And no religion teaches you not to respect your neighbor. No religion teaches you to kill. How are we putting all of these into practice in our everyday life, such that we can say, as an individual, I contribute to, the growth of my immediate community. And it is that growth that will lead to that local government, to the state, and also, to the national whole that we're looking for. How can I, pass a one way? And I'm still telling, a governor that I'm a soldier. All right. It shows the level of how, as individuals, we have not paid attention to our own personal roles and our own personal values. Because again, it is what you see your leader do. Sometimes you also do as a follower. So there's a role for both leaders and followers in all of this quagmire that we found ourselves.
Mr. Yore, you mentioned something about 1988, and
Yes.
Generally, and so many other things have been affected by our decisions since that time. 1988 to now is about 40 plus years now.
Yes.
So the question that I'd like to ask around that is about national orientation. I remember it was about the same time that we were talking about national orientation in this country. Then it was, I think, MAMSA that the government of the day either came up with or eventually came up with national orientation. For all of the ideals that we're talking about, 40 years ago, the people that are in government today were not in government. Although many of the people who are in government today had some of them who are in government at the time are still fairly relevant now. In making progress, Mr. Yore,
Yes.
what has been our challenge in terms of national orientation? I'm taking from some of the issues that raised by Mr. Oluseyi from following Alero's question. In terms of national orientation, what do we need to do looking forward to another 20 to 40 years from now, so that some of these ideas, we're not talking about the same challenges today that we've been talking about, as you said, over the past 40 plus years?
Well, I've heard Jay's position on all of that stuff. What I can tell, I'll ask you one question first before I answer that question. You can see the abuse pension scheme. You can see the abuse in the Accountant General's office, and what happened in Abuja and in Port Harcourt. You can see the abuse of the banking system, what is reported by the investigator's report. Now I ask you, do you think you can explain those ways simply on the basis of character flaws, corruption, or is that a systemic collapse? Now, if you agree that is a systemic collapse, you go back to what I told you earlier on. When you encourage a culture of impunity, who think they can take what does not belong to them. We're in a big problem. I was at Obama swearing in first Obama swearing in. I went to the Nigerian Stock Exchange. We had to tell him then that even 10 became the president of America, as long as there's no homestead, where culture, organized procedures are in play, and where not only the most powerful person can win, and the weak are taken care of, when hiding to nothing. We have examples right here where things have been done. Gentleman that heads JAM, clearly superstar. The man who ran customs, clearly superstar. Very many places where things have been done appropriately. Rather than celebrate them and use them as a kernel for expanding that kind of conduct and behavior, brushed over. That's why I told you that the elite has to allow itself to come to a fair and sensible conclusion, knowing they're not going to live forever, determine what kind of legacy they want to leave. What you're talking about is legacy, food to eat, bed to sleep, that, and all of that stuff. I told you, for as long as you have an elite FED, it's continental, I can say it for certain, really on the hiding for nothing. I'm sorry to say.
Well, let's just call this a conversation starter again. Mr. Iyore, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts this morning. Charles Iyore is principal partner of the UK-based Dion and Associates Limited. And we've also had Oyebisi Oluseyi, Executive Director, Nigerian Network of NGOs. He joined us from Ibadan. Thank you for joining us this morning, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So let's take a break now. When we return, there is more. This time, a little more focused. To stay with us. Well, just before we get into that next conversation, some feedback, two feedbacks actually came from the previous conversation we had. From Skittish Money. Says the elite consensus
Skittish Money?
Well, 27, at 27 to be paying. The elite consensus is what we have in Israel after the October attacks. A war cabinet was formed. UK has the Cobra meet after any incident where everyone is part of the decision making. Politicians need to come together and decide the minimum basics for Nigerians. Consensus on contracts could be use of median bids rather than minimum bids. The median bids are padded with the share of everyone who is to benefit. But the only caveat is a good job must be delivered. This will help with re-awards of same contracts rather than new ones. So, elite consensus carries the day for a Nigeria that works for all, particularly in agriculture.
But it has to. We all have to be involved.
Well, are we all in the elite?
And we all have to play our part.
Well,
remember, I raised the part about the family and the children, because I was thinking about, in Japan, they say, for instance, children want to cross. A car stops for them to cross. After they have crossed, they turn around and say, thank you. That is something that we should imbibe, because how do children behave towards their parents now? We were told the other day that we should learn to listen to them and all that, remember?
Yeah. Let's start from listening first.
Right, next to our next topic now. In 2020, NAFDAC, in a collaborative effort, reviewed the safety profile of some registered agrochemicals in Nigeria, and in consultation with relevant stakeholders, initiated a 4-year phase-out plan for Paraquat and atrazine products, considering the health risks these products pose to public health, and bearing in mind the need to have in place adequate and suitable replacements for these products. In light of the foregoing, the ban and enforcement action for paraquat and atrazine are as follows. The importation of paraquat and atrazine is to stop on December 31st, 2022 and 2023, respectively. In other words, as of today, the importation of those two pesticides should have stopped. One as at December 2022 and the second as at December 2023, last week. The moratorium for the exhaustion of available stock will be January to December 2023 and 2024, respectively. Ban and enforcement action for both chemicals will commence on 1st January 2024 and 2025, respectively. Okay, this may all sound like Greek to many of us, but we have specialists.
Before we get to the pesticides, before we get to the guests, so that people can understand what you're talking about. You said you went for some checkup and your medical consultant told you something.
Yes. They found pesticides in my system, and they also found nicotine. I have never smoked in my life. I am never around people who smoke. I make sure that I eat fresh vegetables, but pesticides are getting in my body somehow.
Okay, so now you can bring the guests. They will tell us how they got in your system.
Maybe from grains.
I don't know.
I'd like to welcome, joining us in our studio in Lagos, the Senior Program Manager, Researcher, Sustainable Research and Action for Environmental Development, Mr. Victor Fabomi. Good morning.
Thank you.
And joining us from our studio in Abuja is Donald Ikenna-Fuegbu, Lead Coordinator, Alliance for Action on Pesticide in Nigeria. Good morning.
Good morning. It's nice to be here.
And joining us via Zoom is Professor Simon Itwange, National President, Association of Yam Farmers, Processors and Marketers. Good morning, Prof.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Let me begin with you in the studio with us in Lagos. Those two, paraquat and atrazine,
Yeah.
what exactly are they? Because this is talking specifically about those two.
All right.
What are they, and how harmful are they to human beings?
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, paraquat is an herbicide which is used to control weed, and since 2007, it's been banned in Europe because of the harmful effect it posed to survivor.
Since 2007?
Since 2007.
What took us so long?
I think NAFDAC will have their reasons, because part of what they say is the fact that there are different weather situations. And because this country is a bit hotter, so it could degrade over time. But if Europeans are saying no, it is harmful to them. So we don't have the mechanism to cope with such poison in our system. So, and I think from follow-up and studies of APN, Stradev, and some other, Erich Bow, and some other very wonderful NGOs, has really shown the need to ban, to be up and doing on this, and to ban some of these harmful pesticides. And that is what brought about that ban that is placed on paraquat and atrazine, and that from 2024, it should not be found in shelf of vendors. In 2022, that moratorium is for them to use up what they have in stock. As from 2024, they should stop using it, and a 1-year extension for atrazine to also be gotten rid of.
Do they both do the same thing for weed control?
Yeah, I I would want to specialize on paraquat because I've done some extensive study. Although Stradev also had an extensive study on pesticide. We had a study in 2022 where we look at the national situation of pesticide in the country. And we found that in terms of quantity, like paraquat takes up the second share, largest share in terms of quantity in the country, which amounts to like above 17% of the entire pesticides. Pesticide cut across insecticide, rodenticide, and some other pesticide. Glyphosate is first, and paraquat seems to be the second.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Afegbu, what do you know about atrazine or atrazine?
Okay, so atrazine, just like paraquats, it's also a herbicide. Used to control weed. They all fall within the same category as herbicides. So basically, they are active ingredients. Atrazine is registered in about, I think, up to like 45 or 60 products in Nigeria. For paraquat, we have over 65 of them registered with paraquat. So for atrazine, it's actually used to control weed. So you see it's sold everywhere. Lots of farmers actually apply them basically as a pre-planting and post-harvest, control of weeds during the planting to basically control weeds. So you have unwanted grasses and you want them to basically dry off. So you apply herbicides such as like a paraquat, glyphosate, atrazine, and the rest of them within this category is for weed control. So basically, this is what farmers, the quick option, that most farmers actually use in terms of like controlling herbicides. But unfortunately, these particular herbicides, atrazine, the same thing with glyphosate and paraquat, they all fall within the category of highly hazardous pesticides, HHP. And when it's highly hazardous, it calls for a lot of caution. Atrazine, just like paraquat, have different health issues which have been proven, health consequences which have been proven scientifically to manifest in humans, animals, and even the environment. So issues like neurological effects are evidence from the use of atrazine. It's also cancerous. It's categorized as causing cancer. It also has some reproductive effects. But a lot of these effects are as a result of, poor and wrong usage. Unfortunately, for Nigeria and a lot of countries, the use of agrochemicals, whether it's fertilizers, whether it's pesticides like atrazine, which is a herbicide, the use of these chemicals are largely abused. Typically, a lot of highly hazardous pesticides like atrazine and paraquat are not even supposed to be sold to public. But you go to a lot of communities and villages and you see them being sold indiscriminately. They are supposed to be highly restricted. They are not supposed to be sold publicly because these are highly hazardous chemicals. So maybe this is where I should stop on atrazine. And the same also applies to paraquat. These are highly hazardous chemicals that are supposed to be strictly regulated. For atrazine, just like my colleague Victor said, it's been banned in EU for a long time. Paraquat has been banned in EU since 2004, and it's really not so easy because of our reality for NAFDAC to basically just effect an immediate ban once these evidences come out because we have lack in terms of like legislations, capacity issues also there, and of course substitutes. We also don't have enough substitutes, but within the course of the discussion, we'll be able to point out one or two, things that, farmers, consumers need to look out for or apply if they want to actually control weeds.
Okay. Professor, hearing these names, these big names, paraquat, atrazine, and knowing our environment and knowing that most of our farmers are small-holding farmers and quite a huge number of them you can't really classify as literate. How is the industry dealing with educating those farmers about the dangers of using such chemicals?
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me quickly back up by giving you a brief story as to how we got here. In 2018, a study was carried out which was sponsored by the International Institute for Tropical Agriculture on paraquat use in Nigeria. Actually, there were two studies that were commissioned by RITA. And it became very clear that paraquat specifically, it's a very hazardous, in fact, a very highly hazardous chemical that has been indiscriminately used in our agriculture due to the fact that our farmers are not literate, like you said, but it is not just the literate aspect of our farming population. It is to the fact that this study, which was supported by 167 literature citations, came up with the dangerous aspects of these chemicals, even if you know how to use them well. So 3 lines of recommendations were brought forward: that paraquat should be banned in Nigeria. Number 2, make it a restricted use pesticide, in which case you have to be trained and certificated before you can use paraquat, or there should be stricter regulations for the sale and use of paraquat in Nigeria. Now, because of the very serious nature of these studies, a coalition against paraquat was formed, made up of about 12 professors, and I happen to be one of them. And we approached NAFDAC, and we told NAFDAC, based on literature, based on science, this is science and evidence-based research, because when you start talking about some of these agrochemicals, there are invested interests that they will come after you. They will think you are trying to spoil their business. And these are very, very big organizations. So if we are going to come up with anything that has to touch their business, you have to be very sure of what you are saying. So we came up with these studies. We approached NAFDAC with this incontrovertible science-based evidence that paraquat is dangerous, both to human health and also to the environment. It was on the basis of this that NAFDAC now came up with a 4-year plan. In 2024, they came up with a 4-year plan to ban paraquat. And the reason was because we got to know later that people were given licenses to import these chemicals. And if they suddenly ban them, there will be litigations in court because people are going to lose money. So NAFDAC felt that, okay, let's use up what was available, and then the people that had the chemicals coming on the high sea, let everything come in, and then we mop up everything, and then by 2024 January, we will place a ban. I can tell you we were not comfortable with this. But we have nothing to do than to continue to advocate against the use of paraquat. Now, I don't want to make anybody to be afraid, but chemical usage in our agriculture has become a very major health problem. And it's because when you use these chemicals, the roots of the plants carry them, and then it's transported into the crop, into the food. And that's why you talk about pesticide residue. So you have pesticide residue in most of the food we eat today, whether it's atrazine, paraquat, or whatever name they call it. In fact, if you are eating salad, in different combinations, depending on the different chemicals that are being used in producing those agricultural commodities, it's like you eat atrazine here, you eat paraquat there, you eat this one here, and it's a major problem to our agriculture and to human health and even to the environment today.
Prof, it seems that the regulators are in a toxic alliance with those who promote these agrochemicals. What do you have to say about that?
Well, that will be putting me on the spot. But if we approach NAFDAC and we told that, you see, the process of, we have even looked at the process of registration of these pesticides. Usually, before you register any pesticide for use in any country, the agricultural system need to first test it. And the testing is not just 1 year testing. You test it for 3-4 years, and then you make recommendation to the regulator to either register or not to register. But we have found out that the process of registering these pesticides is that if we are interested in a particular pesticide, you carry the officials to the country because they have said it themselves. I'm not just making it up. That in most cases, they don't really give out the pesticides to the agricultural system for testing. Like before you can use any pesticide on cocoa, you should give it to the Cocoa Research Institute of Nigeria to carry out the test. But because at times it's too long, what the proponents of these pesticides will do is to carry the officials to the country where those pesticides are manufactured. So they go there, and then they are told that it is safe, it is this, it is that, and then they come back and they give no objection, and it comes into Nigeria. But like I said, many of these pesticides, based on scientific evidence, yes, they were very good when they came in. They helped our food security. But because of increase in knowledge, now we have discovered that they are very harmful and they need to be banned.
Mr. Fabumi, many people don't know that these kinds of processes go into our food production. Many people don't also know the effect that these pesticides have on the foods we consume. In fact, many of us don't even know that we consume pesticides. Like in the case of my colleague who went to see a medical practitioner and they told her that, look, you have pesticides in your system. Can you take us through this process? Do the people who use these pesticides know the impact that they have? Why do they use them in the first place? Are there economic benefits that they gain from using the pesticides as opposed to whatever else you should have used?
All right, thank you. I will take you back to the memory lane where our forefathers planted initially without the use of pesticides. And then we will know there's a lot of land to play with. There's a lot of support from the government too, I would say. And also domestic support in terms of children they have, wives they have to assist in farming. But nowadays, everybody is trimming down on all of those kind of supports because, well, I would say the economic impact. So people are resorting into the use of quick fix, and which pesticide is one of them, the use of pesticides. Like instead of using your hose and cutlasses, you just get chemicals, you spray it on your crops. Even at domestic level, instead of people, based on the busy schedule of people, they just get gramazone. Paraquat is popularly known as gramazone. So just get gramazone, mix it, and just fumigate, and you get rid. It gets dried up, and it's easier to handle. So because of the ease it gives, that's why people resort into that. But however, because of the lack of information on when it should be applied, on how it should be applied, because there are some times of the planting season that pesticides should not be applied, because when it starts fruiting, for instance, when it starts bringing forth fruit, you start seeing flowers, nobody is advised to use pesticides at that moment because it gets absorbed into the body of the crops, and you find it as residues. And some residues above the minimum acceptable levels will make those crops not exportable. There was this publication where NAFDAC DG was crying out and saying that most of our crops are not meeting the international exportable, requirements because of availability of pesticide residue above the limit it should be. And sadly, countries where we are exporting to, there are also countries that have banned pesticide in their country, and they are sending it to our country, and we want to export crops to them. They are rejecting. So at the end of the day, it comes back to us. We feed on those things, and that is just the case. Madam just explained that she tested positive of pesticide in her system. And in the study I said we had, one missing link in that study is the fact that we wanted to request from regulatory bodies if there are instances where they went to the market to test for pesticides in the open market, in the crops available in the open market. We tried severally, we could not get the result. So, but studies have shown that several of these crops, watermelon, ugu, and the likes, when you test them, you find pesticide residues in them.
Oh no.
And then at the end of the day...
So what do we eat?
So that is why we need to promote what is called organic farming, whereby you test your soil and you ensure that there are no pesticide residue in the first instance before you start farming. Then you crop and ensure that you don't apply pesticides. And you ensure that within your locality, within the area of your farm, there are no farmers that also use pesticides. So that is what we are promoting, and that's what we are advocating, that there should be institutions whereby this can be promoted. And farmers who go all the way to produce crops that are free of pesticides should be encouraged. Okay. We could have premium markets for them to sell those crops, at least to people who can afford them.
Mr. Osegbu, you just heard your colleague, Mr. Fabumi, say that we should try to promote what he calls organic farming. In someone's head right now, he's just put huge costs on farming, because once you hear organic farming or anything organic, people assume that it is generally costlier than normal. So in that regard, are there other options to these pesticides that farmers can use that they are not using, and that Nigerians should be aware of, so as to avoid what you mentioned the other time, carcinogenic foods?
Yes, totally. So there are a lot of alternatives out there. So chemicals, we know all these chemicals are in there. Within the chemicals, within that space of chemicals, there are also categorizations according to their hazard levels. So just as you have paraquats, atrazine, you also have nicosulfonates, which is also an active ingredient. It's a pesticide, or it's a herbicide also. So these are less hazardous chemicals. But before we even get to the point of using chemicals, we also have integrated pest management systems. If we look at our agricultural system, 70% of the food comes from smallholder farmers. So what makes them smallholder farmers? The portion of land within which they operate is smaller. So what it simply means is, in terms of controlling your pest or your weeds, it's easy to choose a method that is less hazardous. So there are mechanical methods of controlling weeds, there are biological methods of controlling weeds, there are organic methods of controlling weeds. We have farmers' cooperatives. If you go to villages, you see where farmers come together in group, and then they do farm clearing, rotational. They don't apply pesticides. We did a survey in 2020. Out of that survey, it's among smallholder women farmers. organization, 80% of those smallholder farmers, a lot of them, 80% of them use pesticides. 90% of the pesticides they use are highly hazardous. 90% of those farmers don't even use protective equipment. Now, the good news within that same survey, we realized that within that same statistics, 70% of those farmers still use traditional pest control method and mechanical control in controlling their weeds and their pest control. Some of them use chili pepper, some of them use herbs, some of them use neem leaf, which is the dongoyaro. Some of them, they do clearing, manual clearing. A lot of people do manual clearing because the pesticides are also not cheap. They're also not cheap. So government has been subsidizing a lot of these pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and the rest of them. So if we're going to address the issue of how we curtail pesticides, herbicides, highly hazardous chemical, it's going to be a comprehensive one. Food safety is everybody's business. So from the farmer down to the person selling, down to we, the consumers. I know everybody that wants to eat banana nowadays, you ask them, how is it ripened? Hope you don't use carbide. And then you want to buy beans, you're asking the man, hope you didn't use sniper. So questioning and asking questions raises that consciousness. So as consumers, we should raise that consciousness. And then, when Prof was talking, he was talking about the cocktail of pesticides you can eat in a bowl of salad. Each plant is growing with a different pesticide. So we also encourage people, grow your food. At least grow a fraction of your food. If you're going to cook a particular delicacy, even if it's just the vegetable, grow it, because we know the amount of, farmers want to make quick profits. So the cost of quick profits could result to them using highly hazardous pesticides. The regulator also have their own challenge. It would be nice to see NAFDAC also specifically and deliberately ensuring that, you're putting consensus for chemicals that are not highly hazardous. So from the study we've done, over 50% of pesticides registered in Nigeria are highly hazardous. We should not have that volume. There are still chemicals, there are still herbicides that are not highly hazardous, extremely hazardous. We cannot have so many of them registered in the country. Minimize them and make sure that they are not sold to everybody. You cannot have highly hazardous chemicals, even the big snipers, just sold on the roadside. It's not supposed to be like that. NAFDAC has made some pronouncements, they've passed some memos, they've put in some regulation. But enforcement is another thing. And the truth is, NAFDAC on its own cannot implement. So farmers' associations need to be there. The Federal Ministry of Agriculture, the states also. What's the state's agenda in terms of growing food? So if we're going to apply other methods, there's integrated pest management plan. There's no policy in Nigeria for integrated pest management in Nigeria. We don't have integrated pest management policy. We don't have integrated management frameworks. The organic farming that my colleague talked about. It's expensive. People say it's expensive, but it's expensive simply because the government is highly subsidizing monoculture and these highly hazardous chemicals. So when you go to the Farmer Anchor Borrower program, a lot of the chemicals, the pest controls in there are highly hazardous and they're highly subsidized by the government. Well, who subsidizes organic agriculture? In fact, what's the standard for organic agriculture in Nigeria? So we have an advantage because of our dynamism. A lot of smallholder farmers who can apply simple, non-highly hazardous chemical methods on their farm. We have a lot of traders, a lot of homes, behind your homes. Even if you check YouTube videos, if you check on Facebook, you see a lot of people showing how you could grow your yam, your potatoes, your vegetables, in your backyard or in your home. So we also encourage people to try to grow at least a fraction of your ingredients yourself. And then know the farmers, So there are lots of methods. There are lots of organic pesticides. There are a lot of organic fertilizer being sold by the click. They sell it on Jumia. It's on Facebook. You see a lot of people actually going in there, but we need to encourage them. We need to see how we also subsidize and encourage people that are managing, practicing nature-based farm systems. There's organic agriculture there. There's agroecology in there. What support are they getting? And then how deliberate is the government, trying to ensure that these safer farm methods, are also, being promoted and encouraged instead of just monoculture. Okay. And if we're also going to talk about safety, then for organized registered farms, the formal farms, we need to also visit these farms. We need to ensure that they're also ensuring that their farm workers are safe. A lot of farm workers are exposed. Not just in Nigeria, even in the almighty US right now, they have over 1,800 cases as regards to paraquats. There are lawsuits, where farmers are suing companies saying we don't know the consequences of the use of these chemicals. So in Nigeria, people don't know the consequences of the chemicals they eat. They don't even know the chemicals in their food. Farmers don't know the chemicals they apply on their farm. Consumers don't know the chemicals they are eating. I'm sure even the traders and the manufacturers, a lot of them don't know the health implications of the chemicals they sell. That's why the Alliance for Action, the Alliance for Action on Pesticides in Nigeria has also produced a dossier. The dossier is just looking at what are the active ingredients in the various in the various pesticide products in Nigeria. What are those chemicals in there? What's the health implication? What's the environmental consequences? And then how best can this be applied? So there's need for more knowledge. There's need for more sensitization. And it needs to be door to door. Farmers need to train farmers. Farmers need to be aware of this. And we must communicate in a way that they understand.
All right, Donald. Professor, as briefly as you can, since you're the national president of the Association of Yam Farmers, is there any way that the buyer can be discerning and check out yams before they pay for them if they have pesticides in them or not?
Yeah, it is not just possible for you to look at a tuber of yam and know whether there's pesticide in it or know whether it's organically produced, except there is a certification process. And currently, there is no organic production certification process in Nigeria. There is no agency of government that will certify that a particular crop is organically produced. If you look at our carton, the carton that we have designed for export of yams, we have made provision for the exporter to tick the box whether it is organically produced or not organically produced. But it's very difficult, and we have been advocating for an agency of government to be set up to be able to certify organic production. Like one of my colleagues said, you have to test the soil to make sure that there is no pesticide residue in the soil. But you see, the problem with these pesticides is at times they can stay for more than 50 years in the soil. So it's even making our organic production a joke in Nigeria until we'll detoxify our agriculture and make sure that we are able to get rid of these HHPs, the highly hazardous pesticides. Then we can be on the way to a healthy food production system that guarantees the health of Nigerian consumers.
Quickly, Professor, we have to go now. We've run completely out of time, but I must ask you this before we go. How much advocacy is going on in your association about the use of these hazardous pesticides and herbicides?
Yes, in our meetings, we let the farmers know that these pesticides are hazardous, and you will be surprised the knowledge that these farmers already have, because they already are the people that are impacted by these pesticides. They have a lot of knowledge about these pesticides, and already they are moving away from these pesticides to organic solutions. We are currently documenting all the organic alternatives that are available, and we are making them also available to the farmers. We are working with some of the producers of these organic products, and we are making them available to our farmers.
Professor Simon Etwange, National President, Association of Yam Farmers, Processors and Marketers, who joined us via Zoom. We had from our studio in Abuja, Donald Ikenna-Ofegbu, Lead Coordinator, Alliance for Action on Pesticide in Nigeria. And we had in our studio in Lagos, Victor Fabumi, Senior Program Manager / Researcher Sustainable Research and Action for Environmental Development. Thank you all, gentlemen, for joining us this morning and talking to us about this very important subject.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sunrise will return in just a moment with another interesting conversation. Do stay with us.
Thank you for staying with us. When I was growing up, I heard a lot of leaders of tomorrow, the future leaders. Now we have what they call Future Africa Leaders Foundation, established as a Pan-African organization committed to identifying, nurturing, and empowering young African leaders, making positive impact in their communities. And over the past decade, the Future Africa Leaders Foundation has been a leader in youth development, equipping individuals with essential skills and resources to drive change. Well, we have three of them with us this morning. Joining us is our Ambassador Mariama Gendeme. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And right beside her, you have Ambassador Wissal Rida.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's say ladies first. And of course, Ambassador Azaria Tendai also joins us this morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
All right, so just a quick one. Perhaps an understanding of what this whole thing is about can be a start. So let me begin with you, Ambassador Mariama Gendeme. Give us a description of what the Future Africa Leaders Award is all about.
All right, thank you for having me today. First, I want to thank the President and Founder of the Future African Leaders Foundation, Reverend Dr. Chris Oyakhilome, for giving us such platform as African youth. And the Future African Leaders Foundation, it's a platform that recognizes the effort of young Africans creating impact in the society, impacting the lives of others, taking the lead. Youth are not just sitting down, relaxing. It's a foundation that recognizes their actions in creating impact in where they live, and also making positive change and making good decisions. That saying that Africa is on the map and the continent is doing what it should do as a continent and creating positive change in the lives of their colleagues, youth, and even women and girls. Yeah.
Well, Ambassador Rida, perhaps you want to give us an understanding when we say young Africans making impact. Give us an understanding of what these impacts are.
Can you say the question again?
Say, okay, these are the ways in which these young Africans are making impact, like
yes.
What you have done, what she has done, what he has done, that gave you this privilege.
So, the projects that we are working on are different, but especially in the youth empowerment. For instance, my projects are focusing on youth empowerment with all its pillars, such as the inclusion of young or youth in politics, also the girls' education, and many other initiatives.
Well, Ambassador Zaria Tendai, how has this Future Africa Leaders Awards contributed to the overall development of...
All right, thank you so much, sir. And to be honest, to begin with, I cannot even talk about the contributions of the Future Africa Leaders Foundation without talking about the contributions of our founder himself in our own personal lives, because here people see us ambassadors, but what I can say is we're just icons to the foundation. There's so much. We're just icons that represent what the foundation is made of, because we're products of the leadership that we've seen in our president, Reverend Dr. Chris Oyakhilome, DSC, DD. For example, over the past decade, the foundation has been giving out grants, and as we stand, over $1,490,000 US has been awarded to 123 recipients, of which I myself am a beneficiary. But we've seen these grants make a whole lot of impact, especially in the communities where these young people are coming from. Because as we stand, the Future Africa Leaders Foundation actually stands as a body that houses innovation and creativity. How? The exposure that we get in the Future Africa Leaders Foundation is a kind of exposure that in the past, I'm now in tertiary education, I'm in university, but the kind of exposure that I've received from the Future Africa Leaders Foundation through the Future Africa Leaders Awards is an exposure I could have never gotten anywhere. How? year in, year out, we receive delegates. For example, the former president, His Excellency Olusegun Obasanjo. This year we just received Her Excellency Dr. Joyce Banda. And we've received other delegates like Her Excellency Madam Sirleaf Johnson. And we get to interact with them. This is an opportunity that every young leader needs. Why? Because it does not only inspire us when we see them, but it gives us hope. Knowing that our role models, these are people we look up to. They've done a lot. And as young leaders, these are people we look up to. Now, knowing that they are monitoring us, they are seeing us, and they are supporting what we are doing, it actually gives us a lot of hope. And the Future Africa Leaders Foundation has come up with an initiative which we call FAF School of Learning Initiative. This is a school that focuses in raising young leaders. A platform that is not really there, but it's actually very needed in society. And currently, 77 million young people have been impacted through the projects that the foundation is doing. How? Through our ambassadors. We have the platform like Leadership Initiative Award. What it does is young people are encouraged to carry out different various projects. And as it stands, over 30 million projects have been carried out, which have impacted over 38 million families. I'm talking about families that have been impacted by these various projects. But what is it doing? Each year, for example, I myself, when I was watching the Future Africa Leaders Awards, I started watching them in 2014. I would watch them, but they were doing something to me. How? Because all of a sudden, I discovered that there is so much that I could do because of the exposure that I got. I say it again and again, young people in Africa are doing a lot. And most of them actually have the potential to do a lot. But they just haven't gotten that exposure that can let them know that I can actually do so much.
And this particular Future Africa Leaders Awards created that platform.
It has created that platform, sir.
Ambassador Gandeme, I was asking Ambassador Rita the other time, but let me ask you, how do you see yourself contributing to Africa's growth and development within the next 10 years?
I see myself, I can't say 100% taking part. I can say 360 degrees because with the explosion and platform and networking I've got from the foundation, I can do more than I thought I can. I'm a farmer. I'm a 23-year-old farmer from Sierra Leone, and I'm the star prize winner for this year. I've been into women into agriculture, youth empowerment, girls' education, and advocacy for women and girls. With what I've received so far, the exposure, the platform, the networking, the people I've been able to interact with have positively changed the way I was thinking. I can say I'm not going back home the way I came. I've been able to interact with past presidents that have taught me how to become a good leader, how to impact Africa, how to become successful in all my projects I'm doing. So I see myself impacting positively, going back home. I want to establish a network with the presidential candidates in my country, the rights action, people in action that I can work with, collaborate with, creating the impact that I want. You know, as I'm a farmer, there is something we are lacking in Africa, which is modern agriculture. We are suffering because we don't have all what it takes, the resources that we need as farmers or Africans to become successful in agriculture. Going back, I want to work with my Ministry of Agriculture to know how we can collaborate in creating the kind of exposure, the kind of resources we need to have a sustainable agriculture. Going back home as well to have a mentorship program for girls, because there is a proverb that says, as a youth, if you don't know where you're going, others will take you where you're going. So if African youth have the mentorship they need to know where to go, how to go there, how to achieve all those things, they can be successful. So going back on to create the mentorship program for young Africans, young Sierra Leoneans, to have opportunity to be coached and mentored on how to be successful in life. I also want to bring the message of Fala all over Sierra Leone. As the first winner, it's a privilege for me because I want to take the message of Fala to Sierra Leone for you to believe that there is a platform out there that believes in what they want, what they are doing. There is a platform that gives them the kind of explosion, the kind of network and collaboration they need to do whatever they want to do, because we are capacitated, we have the power, we have the energy in us. We just need a little push for us to do what we want to do. So going back home, I'm going to tell them that there is Fala. Future Africa Leaders Foundation is there, so open your hands. Because for me, winning the award was not just for the grants. It's like a message of you are doing well. Remember, go to the world and impact more life.
Okay.
We see what we are doing.
Okay.
Thank you.
You are the star winner.
I'm a star winner.
So what is the difference between being a star winner and just being a winner?
All right. The process is too long. The starting is we have application all over the continent of Africa, the 54 countries, and we have thousands of applicants that came in. Out of those thousands of applicants, 30 top will be selected. We have selected 30 youth that are doing extremely well in their society. We are selected during the nomination. And after the 30 selection, the jury will now go in to look for the top 10 that are doing extremely, extremely well in the society. Their stories are touching. Their stories are creating impact. Their stories are creating the change that we need in Africa. If they are given the platform, they will do more. Out of the 10, out of the 30, the third song will be selected. And out of that top 10, the star prize will be chosen. The individual that is doing extremely well in our society. The individual
in other words, this year you were the best.
Yes, I was the best.
Let's see your star winner flag.
That's like trophy.
Wow.
Yes.
Very, very Africa.
The map of Africa.
Okay, Ambassador Rida, what inspired you to enter FALA?
So the inspiration to enter the Future Africa Leadership Foundation was deeply rooted by the organization commitment to identify first and train young leaders with an inspiration with a passion of positive change. So the prospect of being a part of this community is aligned with my own aspirations, and also being a part of this community does not only serves as a validation of our work, but also as a catalyst for further commitment to the development of the future Africa. Also, by leveraging the skills, network, and knowledge acquired via the Future Africa Leadership Foundation, we are aiming to contribute positively to the whole continent, especially in the MENA and North Africa region, since I am from Morocco. And yes, in a nutshell, that's all.
Well, you mentioned something the other time about politics.
Politics.
How does this help? Because most of Africa is going in the direction of using politics for development. So how do you think young people like yourself, like your colleagues here, can get into that space as future leaders of Africa and make impact that will give you a place at the table?
So actually in Morocco, I don't know if it's the case in all Africa, in all African countries, young are not really engaged in politics. So via those initiatives, we are trying to include them step by step and try to advocate or to try to give them more information about the process of politics, and so they can be part of this decision-making process.
Okay. Okay.
Which country are you from?
I'm from Malawi.
You are from Malawi, okay.
I'm from Nigeria.
So now that you've acquired this FALA knowledge and experience, what do you intend to do with it when you go back home? She's told us what she's going to do.
All right, thank you so much. What I really intend to do mainly is to mentor fellow young leaders. Like I said, the exposure that I've gotten is a privilege. Not many young people are getting that kind of exposure. So if we're going to do projects and help these young people, but we don't inspire them and we don't instill in them that same kind of drive that is at work in us, that means we are failing the future, because we need to give them that kind of mindset and mentality. Being a recipient of this award already gives me an advantage. Why? Because many young people are already looking at me. They have expectations. They are looking out. I'm a role model. They want to hear me. So I'll have to leverage on that platform that the foundation has given me and take advantage of it now to contribute positively to my fellow young people, to begin to empower them, to begin to drive that kind of mindset that is also in me. Why? Because after that is done, that means I've been able to replicate the leadership of the foundation even in these young people. That means Africa is going in the right direction. Africa is going. So that's one of the main things. And at the same time, I also plan on expanding my works. I'm a 2022 FALA recipient. So I also plan on expanding my works. I remember I was actually talking with a colleague earlier the past 2 days. I was like, I think if I had applied for FALA again this year, I wouldn't have won. Why? Because every year the competition keeps getting higher. Why? Because of that exposure that young people are going. They are challenged. They are challenged not to do what we did, but to do even more. So that kind of exposure, it's something that every young person needs. So that's the exposure that I'm going now, and I'm giving it to others, because that's the same exposure.
Am I sitting to the future president of Malawi?
How are we to know?
You never know.
How are we to know? Okay, now let's wrap up with this one now.
Okay.
Maybe 1 minute each person.
Okay.
There are countless other. There's a number to it, but I can't have the number now. Something in the region of 60 to 70% of Africans are young people.
Yeah.
So if you are to speak to them to make impact in their space, given the knowledge that you have acquired, because maybe not everyone will have the FALA advantage or the Future Africa Leaders Foundation advantage. What would be your challenge then in 1 minute?
Okay, so first I would like to share the story of a lion and elephant today. In the desert, when the lion sees the elephant, he thinks about food. When the elephant sees the lion, he thinks about running. So it's about the mentality. The lion is not the biggest in the forest or in the desert. No, it's about the mentality, your belief system, what you believe. It's now time for us African youth to believe that we have the power within us. We should not wait for the old folks to tell us what to do, because that's what they are doing. They are making decisions about us and we are not even involved. Those decisions that will impact our lives, we are not even involved. So it's time for us to take the front lead in making decisions and taking actions. Let's not just wait and wait for solutions to come. Let's take the lead and in doing things that are very positive in our situation. And let's take leadership as part of our life. We are leaders already. As long as you're an African, you're a leader. So believe in yourself and know that you have the power within yourself to create the impact you want. The African you want to see is with you. Starts with you, and you can do it by yourself.
Okay, so every young Sierra Leonean, you heard?
So I'm gonna complete my friend's ideas. So the future Africa starts by young, by us. So every impact we are doing, it counts. Either we are impacting 10 people or 100 people, this is also can count an impact. So do not hesitate, just go for it. Go do volunteering work. It's gonna do
volunteering work.
Exactly.
How easy is that? Every young person in Africa wants to make the first $1 million within 5 years.
Wow.
Yes or yes?
Yeah,
yes.
Sure.
So why should I go and volunteer when I can use that time to make money?
Actually, volunteering does not only serve, it's not just a money thing. It's also play as a pivotal role in personal development. So going only to school and reading books and passing exams is not really enough to gain this maturity and to develop our personality. So for sure we need that extracurricular activities, and I advise every youth to go and start doing those activities.
Okay. So every Moroccan, you heard? Speak to your constituents in 1 minute.
So what I would say is like what our grand patron and president founder always says, that Africa will only be built by Africans. If anybody is going to build Africa, the right person is you. And one thing you must understand is you are actually the right person to do it. So this is why we're there to give you the exposure. Check out the Future Africa Leaders Foundation. Why? Because this platform, I'm telling you, the kind of exposure that we've received, it has taken us a very long way. So every young person that's listening to me right now, your mentality, like what you heard from our 2023 Star Prize winner, should be that of a leader. You're not going to become a leader simply because you've grown up. Leadership starts now. There is something that you can actually do right there in your community. That is the first step. Look out for a need. Meet that need. You only discover that you're actually capable of doing more by taking the first step. Take that first step. Start right. Collaborate with others. Partner with people. Find out people who are doing what you would like to do. People who are doing what you admire. Find out how have they been doing it. How did they start about? Get to talk with them. Get that exposure. That's what will actually lift you up. Because you're not going to be a leader by just sitting and hoping and complaining. Things are not going well. Things are not going. No. What are you doing about it? Take the first step. Move. And be a leader that you're supposed to be, because you are actually a leader.
And not just fight on social media.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
Well, congratulations, all of you winners.
Thank you so much.
And star winner, congratulations to you.
We have to thank you very much for being here this morning. Ambassador Wiesel Reader, thank you so much.
Thanks for you.
Should I say Vice President of Morocco?
Maybe, who knows?
Ambassador Azaria Tendai, thank you for... No, not you, hold on. Ambassador Mariama Gandema.
Thank you.
President of the Senate in
Yeah.
Sierra Leone. Thank you for being here. Please, please, there are future leaders before you start carrying placard for me. And Ambassador Azaria Tendai, speaking like an aspiring president already.
Honestly.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for you.
Thank you so much.
So we're back in a moment to talk about what you need to get through 2024. Mental well-being. We'll be right back. The things that makes people lose their minds is when data just finish on their phone in the middle of...
It does?
Okay.
Tenny has been relatively quiet, hasn't she?
She has data, don't worry.
Okay. We said Happy New Year at the beginning of the program.
Mm-hmm.
This is 2024. So they say there is no health without mental health. Mental health promotion is the process of enabling people to increase control over their mental health and its determinants, and thereby improve their mental health. Hey, grammar. You know, sometimes you hear these things and you wonder, so you didn't go to night school. So how come you don't understand?
It's because...
Okay, I didn't go to night school, but I don't understand all that grammar.
Well, that's the reason you are not a specialist.
Okay. Anyway, you all know this guy. Clinical psychologist, family life therapist, Miracle Ihoma. Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
And a Happy New Year to you.
New Year to you.
Good to see you again. Every time you all come, you just come and tell us things that will make us, put us on the defensive. This is a new year, please. If you're coming to do that today, make sure you now rearrange your brain so that you don't put us on the defensive today and tell us things that will upset us.
You heard?
After all, this is the first Saturday of the year.
You heard?
That's noted, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Good.
Right. I have made my point. I have sufficiently intimidated him.
Don't wait until the food people come.
So, promoting mental well-being and all that grammar that I read, what does all that mean, please? Break it down for us.
Okay. Promoting mental health, just to paraphrase what you've read, really talks about that we need to promote how we think, how we feel, and how we behave, because those are the three major components of mental health: our cognitive, our emotional, and then our behavioral life. Cognitive talks about how we think and how we process things. Emotion talks about how we feel, and behavior talks about our actions and attitudes and behavior.
Okay.
So promoting mental health now talks about how then should we think better, feel better, and then behave better. And just like Mr. Ayo mentioned earlier, mental health is not just talking about, or health generally rather, it's not just talking about our physical well-being. In fact, World Health Organization defined health as a state of complete physical, social, and mental well-being, and not just the absence of disease. So it means that if you don't have typhoid or malaria, it doesn't mean you're healthy.
Interesting that World Health Organization didn't put financial health.
Right.
So, okay, what are the things that inhibit that cognitive, emotional, and behavioral health that you talked about? What are the things that stand in the way?
Okay, the things that stand in the way would be three-dimensional as well. There would be biological, there would be psychological, and there would be social. So when I say biological, I'm talking about those things that were given to us by nature. Say our DNA, for instance, they could actually inhibit or affect our mental health, and those three things I mentioned. Then the psychological aspect would be anything that affects our psychology, right? And then the social things or the sociological things would be our environment. For instance, say, I think you mentioned COVID. COVID was an environmental factor, a sociological factor that affected the mental health of people, right? Another, something like, say, late marriage could be a psychological factor, something that then begins to affect the psychology of a person.
You know, I found something interesting in recent time, Miracle, and Alero, you may be aware of this as well, where we understand that young people, they resign from a job simply because they don't like the environment, irrespective of the pay. And as we say on the streets, my ova is gasted and my flabber is whelmed. Just by the fact that, okay, I don't like my boss. Irrespective of how much they're paying you, you just resign.
Yeah.
Is that a kind of environment? Is that is this new generation writing the books of psychology in a way?
They are not. You know, they are just. This generation is a bit more aware of their mental health than the previous generation. So when I say this generation, I'm talking about people we know as Gen Zs, you know, and a bit of the millennials as well. Yeah. A lot of people in your generation will take anything, you know, you know, whatever you throw at them, and that's why it seems like people in your generation have a bit more resilience. You know, they would stay more in places, in work environments, even in marriages and relationships than people in this generation. These people, the people in our generation are people who...
More intolerant.
Exactly, if I might use that word. And also in a way, they are more in tune with their mental health. So they know and identify places that are not promoting their mental health and would not hesitate to exit those places. So when they are in an environment, say a workspace, and then they have a boss who talks them down, who is affecting them negatively, they don't want to know how much you're paying them, because for them that is more important to them, and that has to do with, you know, their values. So most likely they value their mental health more than, you know, money and what have you, right? While some other people in the previous generations will say, oh, well, I have to just take it because I need to provide for my family. And that's how we tell people, employers of labor particularly, that beyond just what you're paying people, you need to create an enabling environment where people's mental health can be protected and promoted.
It's interesting that you said that the older generation are more resilient, and that the younger generation, they are quick to exit any environment that seems to be
they find toxic.
Injurious.
Yeah.
Will that in any way, this is not part of the conversation, but will that in any way be one of the reasons for the high rate of divorce?
Yes.
Or failed marriages?
It is. It's most likely one of the reasons why we have high rates of divorce and failed marriages, because, of course, I know that people in my parents' generation, they might not necessarily have been happy in their marriages, but they would rather tolerate whatever is going on. And many times I would say, oh, because of my children, and what name will I give to my family if I leave this marriage right now? You know, what will people think about me? This generation doesn't care what you think about them.
Interesting.
You know,
but you also talked about the consequence of resilience.
Yes.
So this generation is far less resilient than the older generation.
Yes.
And how does that help mental health?
Resilience is very important when it comes to mental health. Very, very important.
But you said that they are less resilient.
Yes. They are less resilient, but they are more in tune with their mental health. Right? So so they understand that, okay, these things get to affect my mental health, but I won't stay in that environment to tolerate this. Even though in life, you can't always exit every environment that you find yourself.
So the mental health is more important than sitting it out.
Exactly. Why sometimes sitting it out is very important? Because because life will always throw challenges at you. And there are some you can exit, there are some you have to manage. You cannot exit it, but you have to stay in there and manage it. Right? For instance,
exit even though they have no alternative.
Even though they have no alternative. Yeah. And who tells them that even the next place they are going to work, there won't be similar challenges? Or the next relationship or marriage, there won't be similar challenges. It might not be the same, but there will definitely be challenge. I tell people that there is no relationship or marriage that is immune to challenges, right? So if you're leaving somebody because he or she poses a type of challenge, you also want to ask, okay, this challenge, is this something that I would never see in the next person I'm going to be with, in the next relationship or marriage?
Somebody was saying during the course of this week, that a man, he was saying, I don't understand what is going on in this country. You watch a Nigerian movie, and all the women are talking about is that the man cheated on me. He cheated on me. Our parents and grandparents had 4, 5, 6 wives, and nobody talked about cheating on me and leaving the relationship because the man cheated on me. Is that part of this resilience we're talking about? It's not just about marriages, even in relationships.
Yeah.
The girls take off because the man has cheated.
Girls are also cheated.
I mean,
because sometimes when we talk about cheating, we make it look like it's a man thing. But the question is, if men are cheating, who are they cheating with?
Okay.
With themselves? They are cheating with women as well. Women just have the way.
Relationships.
Women are in a relationship, and that's not true.
Whoa, please. What's that word?
Indulge me, huh?
Okay. Yes, it's actually part of what we're saying. The fact that they're in tune with their mental health and emotional state. So they know that, okay, if I'm going to be in a relationship and then this person is not going to honor this commitment, I can't be in that environment. So I'd rather leave than, stay in that environment where somebody is cheating on me, right? And that's not to say somebody else who wants to stay in the relationship shouldn't stay, or the person who wants to leave shouldn't leave. I think that everyone should determine, what's best for them, and then decide if they want to work it out or, leave the relationship.
No, you said something, very instructive, that the younger generation, they are more in tune.
Yes.
With their mental well-being.
Yeah.
It's not that the older generation is not in tune as well. It's just that the younger ones are more in tune.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, for all generations, what are the crucial elements for their mental well-being if they're going to meet their goals in 2024?
The crucial elements, I would say everybody needs to just embrace what promotes their mental well-being, irrespective of what generation you are, whether you are Gen Z, Generation Y, or Generation X. You should embrace those things that promote your mental health. And some of those things would include things like exercise, right? Because exercise has a way of affecting our mental health. I like to put it this way. Our physiology affects our psychology. Our psychology also affects our physiology. So exercise has been known to produce happy hormones. That's why when you exercise, you feel good. You just feel good feeling you have about yourself. So exercises promote mental health. Another one is sleep, good sleep. Right, it's very, very important in promoting your mental well-being. I know a lot of motivational speakers have said otherwise. If you sleep 7 hours a day, you would have slept 1/3 of your life by the time you are 70. But I tell people you might not even get to 70 if you're not sleeping well. So you better start sleeping well. And as an adult, you need 6 to 8 hours of sleep every day. If you can't do 8 hours, do at least 6 hours, every day, because you need it. If I have not slept well, for instance, you discover that I will most likely be cranky, I'll become touchy, easily irritable, and things like that. That's because lack of sleep affects our mental health. In fact, an experiment was done. A boy was deprived sleep just for the purpose of this experiment for, I think, up to 5 days. And after 5 days, he started hearing voices. Right? That's hallucination. as a result of not sleeping. So sleeping promotes our mental health. Another one is healthy social interactions.
Sorry, before we go off sleep.
Yes.
There are some who believe that, please don't lose your line of thought on the healthy social interactions,
Yes, sir.
who believe that they have to meet their quota or their schedule every day. And if they do not meet it, they do not go to sleep, consequently denying themselves.
Yeah.
And that because they have to do X number of things in the name of attaining their goals for each day in order to meet their goals for the week and for the month and for the entire year. What do you say to those people?
Well, now it's good that they have a value of hard work, but then you need to understand that sleep doesn't help you to achieve less. It actually helps you to achieve more. The better you sleep, the more alert you are, the more productive you most likely be, because you are well rested. I understand that there are times where you might need to work a bit more and you might not even be able to sleep up to 6 hours, but let those times be rarities. They shouldn't be the norm, right? When you can cover up for those times where you could not sleep up to the 6 to 8 hours every day. But I tell people that many times the reason people say, oh, I have so much to do, I can't even find time to finish everything I have to do every day, is because they don't plan properly. I discovered that when people plan properly, you discover that you have a lot of time on your hands. We have 24 hours, for Christ's sake. Even if you sleep 8 hours, you still have 16 hours. Well, so let's assume you work 10 hours. You still have 6 hours. So that's to tell you that if really you put in the work and the shift, you would have achieved everything you set out to achieve each day and still have enough time to sleep. So one should not deprive you of the other.
Okay. The social interactions, healthy social interactions.
So healthy social interactions are very, very, very important because we are created for connection and not for isolation. So it's important that we actually interact and socialize. It helps our mental health. So I hear people say, I don't have friends. I tell people that if you don't have friends, you are not so much different from somebody who has bad friends. Yes, you are different, but not so much different. Because isolation in itself actually has its consequences. And that's why a lot of people, go into depression and things like that, because there are really no social interactions around them.
Okay.
Another one is...
Before we go to the other ones.
Okay, sir.
Now, there seems to be different levels of connections.
Yes.
Friends.
Yes.
Colleagues.
Yes.
Acquaintances.
Yes.
Now, there are completely different levels of interactions.
Yeah.
Consequences, so such to the extent that sometimes some people think their colleagues are friends, but their acquaintances are friends. So you'll be having expectations
of the colleagues
as friends, as opposed to acquaintances as friends. What are the mental health consequences of such expectations?
Yes, so it's important that you properly grade people and categorize.
Categorizing is a difficult thing for some people.
Yes, it is actually, and it's something that you need to learn. You need to understand that, just like you said, there are different levels and cadres of friendships and relationships. In fact, I like to group them into three: their acquaintances, their casual friends, and their intimate friends. So you need to know where everybody is per time. Acquaintances are those people, all you have with them is a hi and bye. Hi and bye. How you doing? Hope you're good. How was the night? You slept well. And that's all. Casual friends are people you talk about general things with. The sports, the news, what happened in the office yesterday. Just general things. But intimate friends are those you get personal with and then discuss, become vulnerable with and discuss intricate parts of your life with. So it's important you know where everybody is and qualify everybody for each level. That's why a lot of people bring people into their lives and then they get hurt because they didn't properly qualify those people before graduating them from acquaintance to intimate friends. You meet somebody today, for instance, and then by next week you're already calling them, oh, my G. No, they're not necessarily your G. You don't have time you've not had time to know them. So it's important that you appropriately qualify people for each level in your life per time before you actually now attribute such roles to them.
Okay.
Is it this awareness, which I want to call over-awareness sometimes, that makes the incidence of depression and suicide more common? these days than before?
Well, awareness makes, or is what has helped us to recognize it more. It has not been there. It has always been there, rather. But awareness now helps us to recognize that, okay, this is depression.
When I was in school, we didn't know what depression was.
Exactly. But it didn't mean people were not depressed. Right? So mental health has evolved over time.
Okay.
And in fact, there was a time where exorcism was a method of actually treating people with mental health conditions. What does that mean? They actually drilled holes in the heads of people who had any form of mental health issues, because they felt that they had demonic spirits that were actually in them, causing them to behave or feel or think in the ways that they were thinking and feeling and doing. So they felt that if you drill holes in their head, those spirits will have an avenue to live. And that was a form of treatment for people with mental health issues.
I don't even want to ask whether it worked or not.
Of course, people were dying.
Okay, but you see, really. The question she asked only reminded me that falling back to the conversation about friends, colleagues, acquaintances, casual friends, and all. A number of people get affected by social media, and so what level of relationship is that one? Because it's one form of connection, particularly for these Gen Zs you're talking about.
Yeah. Social media is social media. And you can't, even though we say is my friend on Facebook, but as a Facebook friend, it's not a real life friend, right? So you need to understand the disparities that exist, because social media actually shows you what people want you to see. And like I always like to say, people would always put their best foot forward. So many of the things you see on social media are quote unquote the best of people in that sense.
And they want you to see.
They won't show you their worst state. So if I was wearing boxers and singlet, I won't snap myself and post on social media. I'll most likely snap myself on Channels Television.
Except
and say, wow,
you were marketing something.
Exactly. I came on Channels Television. And even though I drank Gary in the morning, you wouldn't know, because what I want you to see is an image of me being in Channels Television. So that's why it's very important that we are very wary of social media. Understand that social media, it is not necessarily real life connection. So you need to have real life connections with people. That's why the advent of social media has actually reduced human interaction. And that's why we have the increase of mental health conditions and things like depression. In fact, it has been said that very soon people would need to start employing distraction managers, because they won't be able to manage distractions anymore, and they will need other people to help them manage it as a result of the things that are happening on social media. Okay. So social media actually has had positive impacts, but at the same time, there are negative parts to mental health that is discussed.
So you who are permanently on social media, watch out. Miracle Ihoma, thank you very much. Miracle is a clinical psychologist and a family life therapist. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So
You didn't depress us today.
So now we know there's another employment opportunity in the future.
Yes.
Distraction manager.
Distraction manager. Thank you very much. Sunrise will be right back with the home stretch in just a moment. Stay with us. Having played this far.
Our artist of the week is none of the two on the screen. Just so you know. However, our artist of the week is an actor, a dancer, and dance instructor. She is a performer. I don't know if she's a singer yet, she'll tell us. And she runs a production company called Oxygen Concepts. Yesterday we tried to dichotomize between a performer and an actor, something like that, because there is a difference between stage performance and movie. I don't know. Please join me in welcoming this morning our
Artist of the Week, Zara Udofia Ejo.
Thank you very much.
She's smiling. This kind of New Year smile that will make someone say, give me your account number.
You know what I mean now. That's why this
I don't know what you mean, though. First somebody will come and knock your door. Hey, you collected. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to have you here.
Thank you very much.
But just so you
What
know.
is all this forming shy? Look at her face.
Please. The last person, Alero, the last person that will deceive anybody that he or she is shy is a stage performer.
Thank you. Please, told her. Please.
I'm actually naturally very shy.
English.
Oh, she's actually very shy, she says.
Even you don't believe yourself.
And you're on stage.
Even you don't believe yourself. Good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Just so you know, you are the first artist of the week
For 2024.
There's no award for that. Just
Why?
shy people don't behave like this.
I don't understand, but there should be now.
There should be. We'll ask our...
As in first.
No, first for this year.
Yes,
There
now.
was first last year. We not get. You not get.
No matter, I go start on this year. It's 2024.
Your sister is here. Yeah, start asking her. I want here.
Oh, God.
Are you surprised? How's it been?
It's been good.
Where
Very
have
good.
you been? Hiding.
Hiding?
Yes.
In plain sight?
No helicopter sight.
No.
Plain
Yes, around.
sight.
Yes.
Okay.
You have been aligned.
More around.
aligned.
So what have you been doing? This is 2024. Maybe okay. Let's take it. Yeah. How far back does it go for you in this business? I understand that when you were younger, you used to perform in church and you didn't even know that you were going to do this as a career.
No, I didn't. As a little girl, I wanted to be a nurse or flight attendant. I wanted to be able to serve people, to travel. I wanted to see the world. But I guess I'm doing that now as an actor. I'm traveling. I'm seeing some of the world. I've not seen every part of it yet, as much as I'd like to. But I'm getting there.
It's coming.
It's coming. It's coming. Yes, it is. It's coming.
You wanted to be a nurse?
Yes. Until I realized I did not like blood and needles. I still don't.
You don't like the sight of blood?
And needles.
So, how did you get into acting as a career?
Can I say purely by accident? It's possible to say that now, sure. Abi. It's happened to me. It picked me. I had a cousin who was living with us. I was 15 going on 16, GSS 2, GSS 3. And she was in secondary school as well, in senior secondary school. And she was a part of a drama club that was created by a professional theater production company. So she was going to rehearsal one Saturday, and I wasn't doing anything. I was already doing stuff in church, always doing poetry in church, singing in choir, pretty much wherever I was needed. And I asked my mom for permission to go with her, and that was it. I met with a bunch of people who, Joseph Ofili, God bless you, thank you, Sunday Okunumo, Charles Somoregbe, who came back home with me and told my mother, and asked my mother for permission to take me to the National Theatre.
So you met
and you were hooked.
You met those two criminals, Joseph Ofili and Charles Somoregbe. Okay.
I did.
Okay. They just happened to be friends.
I did.
You met those two.
The story of my life will never be complete without them.
Stage is, okay, just for want of confirmation, stage is different from TV acting. How?
First, it's not a contest. A lot of people have, put me in situations where they want me to answer question or.
I didn't say which is better.
I know. I'm saying for the audience to just clear the air. It's not a contest. It's different. The elements that go into it. I can sitting here now, I can get an email saying that I've been cast for a role in a film or a TV production. I get on stage, on sets, and they say, oh, we need you for 2 days. Here's your script. Here's the character Bible. I have a quick 10, 20-minute conversation with the director who tells me what my character, what he would like to see. And I go to a corner. I take in the lines. I get on set. They give me the costume, put the makeup on. And they say, okay, this is what we want you to sound like. This is how we'd want you to sit here, your secretary, whatever the role is, you know. And I have sometimes maybe 30 minutes, an hour to just take it in, embody, get on camera. It's action. I deliver. I get a chicken. My account rings. And, you know, we wait to see it on the big screen. For theater, you can't be rehearsing for about 3 months. Yeah. I'm going to rehearse.
There's no take two.
No. You do it right there. Thank God I was not born in the days where they used to stone people rotting eggs. I don't know how. You know, I probably would not have attempted it at all. You know. But you go through that rigor. You have your polishing. You can do take 10. I've done shoots where we did take 12. Take 15 at 2 a.m. in the morning.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Because one actor, there was just that line or that expression that the director just wasn't getting. And you know, I remember that day, it was a crowd scene. That person was just not, you know, having it. And at some point, we had to take in the line, oh yeah, read 3 lines. Have you gotten these 3 lines? Yes, I've gotten it. Oh yeah, shoot these 3 lines. We shoot the 3 lines. Oh yeah, come and get the next 3. We're going like that. You can do that with camera. Because when you're in the editing room, anything can happen. That's where the magic goes on.
Your green can become blue.
You know what I mean? Green, things used to go on. You're taller, you're shorter, you're fatter. Anything can happen, you know. Suddenly it's just your voice. Your face, no, they don't even show your face at all. It's just your voice. But when you're on stage, the beauty of contacts, the magic of seeing it all come alive. There's no ojoro. The audience is right there. You are sitting there with the person. You can't lie. Everything happens here. If you try to cheat, if you scratch your leg, the audience is looking at you. You know.
But the good thing about the stage is that you can make mistakes and you are the only one who knows that you made a mistake.
The audience doesn't know your story.
For instance, I talked about Charles. Charles was directing a play and I was playing the lead. He was also playing lead, but he was like sub-lead to mine. He casted me for the role because he wrote the play. And I was supposed to be downstage left. He was supposed to be center stage center. So I had gone to stay at center stage center. And he came from wherever. Now, this is the irony. I was playing the role of the Holy Ghost. He was playing the role of the devil. And he could move me from center stage center to where I was supposed to be.
But you see...
And guess what? Only the 2 of us knew what was happening.
And he did it within the context of the story.
Absolutely.
He needed to imbibe the discipline of being able to move you without his audience knowing that something's gone wrong, somebody is done. I mean, we have this situation where we see that, something have happened. Something just happened right now. And then you can tell that there's a dramatic error somewhere. It has to happen without your audience knowing. So we take that time to go through the rigor of rehearsal, mastering it, imbibing the discipline, you know, knowing, honing the craft of, the skill of the craft.
Wouldn't you therefore say that stage is a bit more difficult than...
It is very, very challenging. It's far more challenging than doing every genre of the performing arts come with their challenges. You know, doing radio, sometimes it's... But there's a joy in hearing the outcome.
I would rather not be seen. Radio gives me that
that mystery.
Radio now seems like a piece of cake in comparison.
It's not. You see, where TV and stage gives you room for expression, everything happens through what is heard.
Yeah.
How your body voice moves, has to come through your voice.
We have to see what you're saying.
See you. Yeah. We see you, we hear you, we know what you're feeling, how you're looking at the time. You've got to be able to pass it through just by being
You
heard.
used that word that I was looking for, discipline. While every performance, stage, because like it or not, comedians are on stage as well. Musicians are on stage as well. Every one of them has to have certain disciplines. But for stage, there is a code for discipline. I just hinted at one now. You have to be at certain points on the stage. If one person is on the wrong side of the stage at any given point in time, it affects the entire
trajectory
ecosystem
of how the story is told.
On the so is that one of the reasons that you would say, maybe I should ask it differently. People enjoyed stage back in time when there were no options. She's laughing.
Okay. We still enjoy the stage.
Here is where I'm going.
Okay.
Stage is a lot more technical, as you said. Yeah. Stage goes around and all. But rather than take all the cast and crew around, film just takes a tape.
Yes.
Or, come on. You just transfer it.
Yes.
And upload maybe 200 gig or whatever gig of movie, and it goes. So all of the cast and crew are through just one document. What are the things that you think we can do to shore up the magic of stage in our country? Because there's something about stage. In whichever culture, it pushes up, it markets culture. Someone was telling me about China and Japan and India, and that stage is part of what has helped them today to sustain their cultural heritage.
Yes.
What do we need to do in our country to do that?
We need to find a way to sell it.
Are we not selling it through our movies now?
Well, they're still movies. While you go to the theater, like he's just rightly said, the movies come to you at home. It's just all you need is that, no matter how small. We can watch movies now on our cell phones. You know, it depends on how wide your screen is. It comes to you. But theater, you still have to go to it. And while those systems can coexist and work very, very well independently, we cannot trade one for another. The culture of theater is the culture of theater.
Would you say we have that culture here?
We used to, and it's coming back. When I was introduced to professional theater in the 90s, I was in awe. Stepping into the National Theatre for the first time was a dream for me. God, it was like being in America. You know, you pass on Eco Bridge and you see that building, and then you tell yourself one day it would be nice to just, go in there. Just waka pass, And then my first waka pass is actually being on stage in Cinema Hall 2. And it was impossible. It was not possible to happen. You understand what I mean? And it has grown. I meet kids. I meet teenagers. I meet older people who walk up to me and say, I would just like to have one experience on stage. I've met people who've been doing TV and film for way longer than I have been. Excuse me. And I get calls and they say, I would just like to do just one. Just be on stage, just one. I've done it before. I'd like to experience it again.
I hope they know it will take 3 months to...
Well, sometimes it's shorter.
Okay.
There is a reason why the
You can't, it shouldn't be traded. That we have a vibrant film culture does not mean we throw away the theater culture that we can, because theater goes beyond just being entertainment. It goes way beyond. I've performed in the marketplace. I performed in stadiums. I performed under the bridge. Yes, because those messages, those audience, that particular audience needed to be reached, depending on what kind of message that you're carrying.
Going by the history of theater, you actually take it around.
Yes.
And all of that. What are you doing now on stage?
Today.
Oh, today?
Today. Oh, for the past, since...
Why are you talking like someone that is doing toasted?
Oh, God. It's 2024. We're going to have a beautiful year. It's good to start it like this. So today, sounding like someone who's being toasted, I'm going to be on stage.
Okay.
Playing Omajua, King Omajua in The King Must Dance Naked.
Oh, you are the one to dance naked? I'm just asking. You said you are playing King in King Must Dance. Isn't that what you just said?
What if there's another king?
Oh, okay.
Maybe the king before the king or the king after the king is there's going to be a king that will dance naked. And I'm playing a king.
Well, in case you want to see the king dance naked. And on stage, not in film.
Glover Memorial Hall is where it's happening.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's actually winding down now.
Yes, this weekend.
It's on its last legs this weekend.
Okay. So you people have come to market theater to us again.
We have to keep marketing it now so that we don't lose. People know that there's still theater.
You know, it's good that you say that theater is coming back, because when I was growing up, theater was big. Even if it was school plays, you made so much noise about it. All the parents came, and it was a big thing to see their child on stage. We don't hear so much about all that these days.
Oh, well, it still happens in schools.
In the same way that, what's that thing called? Betamax and all that came and killed cinema. Happily, cinema is coming back. Where they turned our cinemas into churches.
For me, the only thing I'm just going to say is, for the theater audience, because a good number of them are still on the big screen as well.
Yes.
And one thing that I also find exciting is that stage now uses these kinds of screens as their props and all from time to time.
They incorporate it.
Well, we have to thank you very much for being here this morning, for being our very first artist of the week, all the way from Eket in Akwa Ibom State, Zara Udofia Ejo. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And break a leg tonight.
Well,
I hope we'll see you at the theater to see the show.
All things are possible to them that believe.
I believe you. We'll see you there.
Okay. And that's Sunrise, the very first in the year 2024. Thank you for the privilege of being a part of your morning. And please do have an amazing and exceptional 2024, a blossoming one. I'm Ayo Makinde.
And I'm Alero Edu saying see you next week with a brand new edition of Sunrise. Bye-bye.